Ralph Waldo Emerson.
There is a ceaseless flow of change.
This dude was a badass.
Gratitude for the common.
This dude's whole thing was stirring up the status quo.
To get you unstuck from where you are.
Our being, our essence is in constant metamorphosis.
I'm grateful that there's a bed I get to sleep in.
Yeah, see, I told you.
I'm grateful that there was food on the table.
Yes, welcome to Truth Be Told. This is Soul Evolution Collaborative. This is our weekly video series where we get to come live with you online and talk some spiritual truth. So this is a new month, so we have a new theme. The theme this month is roots. There it is. And I got to be totally honest, the first time it was said, I didn't get it. And that's how much of a bad 90s child I am. I didn't get it. I have since come around to totally getting it, and I think it's freaking hilarious. So we're totally going to roll with this whole 90s roots, there it is theme this month. And so we're doing this dive into the roots of New Thought, how we got here, who got us here, what they were thinking, maybe why they were thinking it, and definitely how this impacts all of us today in this philosophy, in making life actually work, like for all of us. Not just some of us. And I think going to be one of my favorite parts is the end of the show where we actually get into if they were alive now, what do we think they would say about today? I think we're going to stick to the good stuff and maybe not the bad stuff, but what would they say if they were alive now? So tonight, Truth Be Told, Roots, there it is, all about Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson, American transcendentalist, born 1803, lived till 1882. And if you are anything like me, this brings you back to that 1 week of high school history where they're talking about transcendentalism and it's not really making any sense. You don't know what it means, probably because they don't know what it means. This dude was a badass. Everybody thinks he's this essayist, philosopher, lecturer, and those things are really true, but I think some of the most important work of Emerson was the stuff that kind of doesn't get talked about. 1832, and this guy, Unitarian minister, turns to the church and goes, yeah, I don't think I can do this anymore. This job is antiquated, and we need to stop. My man gets invited to give the commencement address at the Harvard Divinity School and completely denounces Jesus, says that he's not even a god. Gets labeled a poisoner of young man's minds, gets basically thrown out, and just like ignored the whole thing, didn't even respond. He left it up to his followers to even say anything about it. He wasn't invited back for 30 years. His wife passed away, and he inherits like what would be almost $500,000. Now, he had to file a lawsuit against his in-laws to actually get the money, but hey, $500,000 that he then turns around and uses to pay the way for other writers and transcendentalists to get their work published and out into the community. This dude bought like 11 acres of land, gave land to Henry Thoreau, where he then built a cabin and wrote Civil Disobedience. Yo, no Emerson. Emerson not being this philanthropist, we would not have Thoreau. We wouldn't have Gandhi. We wouldn't have MLK. All right. Maybe we would. It may have happened anyway. Buys land and uses the rest of this money to support up-and-coming writers and philosophers, transcendentalists, just so they can get the word out and, like, stir shit up. That was this dude's whole thing. He had such, like, this, like, chill demeanor and actually apparently came across as looking quite conservative. But, man, this dude's whole thing was stirring up the status quo. Don't be this in the box, lame Puritan, whatever he was rebelling against. Dedicated his life to paying the way, providing the resources. He was the editor at one point of The Dial, a magazine put out specifically by the Transcendentalists just to get new up-and-coming writers published in this magazine, all about getting this word out to the American people about this new way. A new way that we're still trying to get out there now, like 200 years later. He then goes on to become this like famous lecturer, giving enough lectures in a season to make more than he was making in any of his previous jobs or roles. Ended up making like $2,000 a season, which is close to like $50K today. This dude had some major wisdom to pass on, stuff that we're still trying to figure out today. Mainly that life is a process. And this idea that science and religion, science and faith can exist simultaneously, that we don't have to be afraid of one or the other or commit to one and not the other. They both exist at the same time. Self-reliance, one of Emerson's major essays. Don't conform. Don't conform to how life has always shown up. Think for yourself. Make your own decisions. Look inward at yourself. Think about what you want life to show up as and do that. Pretty simple.
We aim above the mark to hit the mark.
So I was awesome.
I didn't realize how much fun I had with that until like literally right now.
That was awesome.
That was so good.
So I didn't mention in the little opening there. So we have a special guest tonight that we are super excited about. So welcome Reverend Chris to the scene, who we love and adore and is equally as amazing, if not more amazing than we are.
Definitely not more amazing.
Well,
I'll go with equal though. I'll take equal. I didn't want to like throw off. Y'all have had the 3 going on, so y'all didn't want to throw it off too much. So you decided to have another Chris.
Yeah. Well, we figured for the first time we'd make it easy on ourselves. You know, we don't have to like come up with a new name or anything. So yeah, super easy.
Oh man, that was awesome, Dan.
Well, thank you.
What I find intriguing is like the same stuff then is like the same stuff now. Like the whole science and faith like existing simultaneously.
Yep.
Yeah. That I gotta tell you, like, I didn't just know all this. I actually had to go like do some research. Man, did that shit hit hard? Like to find like, oh, yeah, we're literally still discovering like the same thing now over and over. Dang.
It makes you like I wonder like what's the barrier? What is that one thing that we haven't quite nailed in?
Man, that's such a good,
It's like one thing. There's something that one little piece that if we got that, then it would be like, oh yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what that
do a follow up on that, right? We'll have to do a follow up on that. I have no idea.
If you were waiting for me to say what that was,
I was.
No, it's such a good question though. Like what is it? Like why are we still, as you're talking about Dan, it's like we're still in the same spot and we're still kind of, that his stuff is still so alive, which is really awesome, right? Because we're talking about timeless wisdom here. And at the same time, like, what is it? What do we need to push us over that hump? What is it?
Yeah.
maybe by the end of the month we'll know.
Maybe by the end of in 30 minutes we'll know. 20 minutes.
We'll have figured it out by 7:30 for sure.
Definitely. Stay tuned, y'all. You don't want to go anywhere.
It's a really deep episode. I can tell. Yeah, but like it's funny because like so there's what's the dude's name? Adam Ruins Everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
Amazing show. And like dude jumps into all these topics we think's like this totally lame or tame idea, and he just, here's the truth. Here's what really happened, right? And so when I was kind of looking up Emerson, it's like, okay, I'm aware of self-reliance. I know he's a transcendentalist, and like I've come to kind of know what that means, right? And it's like, but what did that really mean? Like, what did it really mean? And to like, there was this huge rebellion against the Puritan values that like existed in so much of the Northeast until the transcendentalists, and still, I mean, even after the transcendentalists. But man, it was like he really, like, his whole thing was to stir up the status quo, like left and right. His whole life was about it, and I'm like, why didn't they teach us that? Like, why don't we learn those things? That's interesting.
What's interesting too is that like every like decision he made was in this forward moving vision, and like even like creating space for other writers and for other like smart people and people who had this vision to bring this new way of existing. It's like every decision was very intentional in that movement.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives us a bit of a blueprint of kind of what we need to do. Like every decision is pointing in that direction, very intentional. And it was like it was like no holes barred, like just his whole like essence being, everything was in that vein, in that movement. So it's interesting, like it gives me interesting visual and like kind of what we're trying to do, like just being very intentional about these new ways of thinking and being and experiencing ourselves and each other. And I don't know, it was just, when you were talking about that, it was just so many little things that he did that contributed to so much. It makes you kind of take a second thought of the little decisions we make, especially in ministry. Like,
yeah,
what we do today, how is that going to impact tomorrow and the next day?
Yeah, I think about that in my center, because I have a Say the Vision like every Sunday. And I always talk about every decision that we make is put through the lens of this vision. And you're right. You can really see that in Emerson's life, that like he had a vision, he had somewhere he was heading, and he brought everybody along with him. Like not only did he head towards his vision, but he was like such an enroller and such a leader that he was bringing all of these people along. And then he manifested the resources to do that in this really profound way.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think I'm ready to hear more. Now a little bit from Chris. Not this Chris, the other Chris.
Not me.
Ralph Waldo Emerson and practical application. Now, I want to start with a couple of quotes. First one from Emerson.
Cultivate the habit of being grateful for every good thing that comes to you, and to give thanks continuously. And because all things have contributed to your advancement, you should include all things in your gratitude. If the stars should appear but one night every 1,000 years, how man would marvel and stare.
I want to take that one further and say, if the stars only appeared one night a year, we would marvel and stare. And then the final one is, the invariable mark of wisdom is to see the miraculous in the common. So for my practical application from the infinite wisdom of Ralph Waldo Emerson, I want to bring in the idea of gratitude for the common, for everything that we get to benefit from every day. Now this exercise, this practical application, I am borrowing it from Abraham Hicks. It's called the idea of the barrage of gratitude. Now this is something you can either use, like if you find yourself in a funk, which is the first time I ever used it. I was in a bit of a funk and I wanted to find anything that would help. This did the trick. It elevated me just a couple of levels, but sometimes that's all you need to get you unstuck from where you are. Or this is a very powerful practice to use anytime. Use it on a daily basis, and you will keep yourself in a higher state of being, of just appreciation. So the idea is just to quiet your mind, go within a little bit, take a couple breaths, just kind of flush it out, and then just start. It's called the barrage of gratitude. And think about the common things. For instance, I am grateful that there's sheets on a bed that I get to sleep in. I'm grateful that there's a bed I get to sleep in. I'm grateful that there was food on the table. I'm grateful for the fork that I used to eat it. Grateful for the plate that it is. The people that delivered the food from wherever it came from the fields, from the pastures. I'm grateful for the sun that shines on me every single day. I'm grateful for this road that today I was able to drive 100 miles in under 2 hours and go from seeing one family to going to see another family. How amazing is that? All these little things, and just let it go. The longer and the more powerful you can let it flow, the better. And honestly, it's infinite, the ideas that you can come up with. Just let them flow. The barrage of gratitude. Give this a try, and I'm pretty sure you'll see an elevation in the mood that you are experiencing. When we're in that higher state of appreciation, we flow from a place of more love and more gratitude, and it ripples out. It touches people around us, but it also elevates our own level, our serotonin and all those other feel-good chemicals that are in our body just waiting to be released. This is the perfect way to get that flowing whenever you may need it. Thank you, Ralph Waldo Emerson, for reminding us to see the miraculous in the common.
That was awesome.
Can I just say, since he's not here, the lighting and the way he was sitting, man, that stash looks phenomenal.
I know. It was well waxed, wasn't it?
That curvature was like, it was brilliant.
Oh my God.
Very nice.
I like that he talked about gratitude, because for me, like, gratitude is like my attitude adjuster. Like when I have just a really crappy attitude, which happens more frequently than I would like to admit. But it's nothing like if in that moment being able to stop and be able to like focus on those things we're grateful for, even if it's just those things that we consider like mundane, not these huge things. And it for me, it just turns it right back into that place where I need to be. When I remember to do it, of course.
Yeah.
Like that he pulled the gratitude part out of that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So cool.
And on that note, hopefully they make it back. It's really funny because my like history with gratitude, like it was one of those things where when I got into New Thought years ago, gratitude was one of those things that was like, you should be grateful for the lessons that life gives you. And it was just like, really though? And I don't know that was necessarily ever said like outright that way, but man, did it feel like that for like years, years, this whole idea that like you should be grateful. And it's like, all right.
Yeah, let's use some metaphysical malpractice to like
right
to make you feel guilty for not being grateful.
Yeah, for real.
Here I am.
Well, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yeah,
so it's good. I'm glad you're here for this because I wanted to. Sorry, Rev Dan, did I interrupt you?
No, you're good.
They told me to pause. I didn't pause. He called it a barrage of gratitude, and I like calling it a rampage of appreciation. And what I do is I take one object, and then I just go for like 3 minutes. Like the glass, I'm so grateful that this glass is like so thick and sturdy that like I could probably drop it and it wouldn't break. And I'm so grateful for the water, and like just go like so deep into that one object. And it, to me, that just like expands my awareness of something that's like so mundane that we don't even think about, just pouring a glass of water out of our fridge, right? But like there's so many just different aspects of that one thing that just shifts and changes my life and makes it so much more miraculous and so amazing and so profound in just these teeny tiny ways that I can notice when I pay attention to it.
Yeah, I dig that. So it's kind of interesting because the what got me to come back around to gratitude and to like, not that I wasn't grateful for things, but it was like, don't tell me what to do. But like everything else. But what really got me, and I say this because I'm sure there is someone out there who is like, having some weird experience with gratitude, right? But what got me was the form of prayer that we use in Science of Mind, spiritual mind treatment is what we call it. And it's like, it's broken out into steps, right? And one of those steps is gratitude. And what was amazing, I remember the first time that I was using this formula for prayer, where I realized the gratitude step is not only because being grateful shifts energy, but in working my way through these steps, I realized that I was complete and had shifted something when I got to that step. And all of a sudden it was like the only thing left to say was some form of like, oh my God, thank God for this being what it is. There was nothing else left to say. It was just such a natural step forward to then be in this gratitude. It was like, oh, holy, like, wow. And so I that was, several years ago already, but it was like, what a shift to go from this like idea of you should be grateful into like, what is there left but to be grateful?
Yeah, like it's the obvious natural progression of something.
Yeah. And so for me, that was what came up when Chris was talking about this like barrage of gratitude, that it may seem silly. Like if I were to do that, it would seem really silly at first. Like even now, it would probably seem really silly at first to sit and do that. But at some point in that process, it moves from being silly to being like, oh yeah, this is true. And then to being like so super authentic. I guess it's kind of like when you laugh. If you fake laugh repeatedly, at some point it seems so silly, like you actually start laughing for real at yourself, fake laughing. Try it. But I kind of feel like that was the same thing for me. Hearing Chris talk about that, I was like, oh, huh, interesting.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we are not done yet. We want to take a moment to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being involved in the mission of Soul Evolution Collaborative. We have the most amazing jobs. We get to have a lot of fun, put together a lot of these programs, and just really sit in these spiritual truths. And what's really cool is we get to share them with you. So if you would like to be a part of our ministry, like to support our ministry, like to just come along for the ride, hop on over to soulevolutioncollaborative.org. There's tons of stuff there to look at and be involved in, and to get involved in all things we've got going on. If you'd like to support us financially, we are always grateful for the flow of abundance in our lives and in our ministry. So like I said, hop on over to soulevolutioncollaborative.org, and back to the show.
So what would Emerson think today? And what would he say to us today in this time, in this place, in this experience that we're having? And so Emerson believed that there is a ceaseless flow of change, that our being, our essence is in constant metamorphosis. So I think if Emerson was alive today, he'd say, yeah, see, I told you. We're still in this constant metamorphosis, this constant evolving, this constant expansion of expression, this constant expansion and understanding of who and what we are to ourselves and in relation to the divine, and especially in relation to one another. That we are constantly changing, constantly have new opportunities, experiences in our lives to learn from, to grow from, to integrate into this ceaseless change that Emerson spoke of. And so we see that. We see that in our world today. We see that in how we interact with one another. We see that in fights for social justice and change, and this kind of rising up consciousness that pulls us into this greater awareness. It pulls us into this greater frame of being, this greater way of knowing ourselves, knowing each other, and knowing the divine. So I think Emerson would say, keep on going, because it's always changing, always flowing. And to be willing to step into that next change, to be willing and open to the metamorphosis, to not resist it, to know that it is part of who and what we are, to know that it is integral to our growth, to our mental growth, our emotional growth, our spiritual growth, to be open to what each day brings. And knowing that each day brings this greater opportunity, this greater expansion of our minds, this greater container that is constantly filled with all things that are true and good and beautiful. And so Emerson would say, let's keep going. Let's keep evolving. Let's keep moving. And let's keep stepping into that space of metamorphosis, that space of transformation, and that space of evolution.
Yes.
How you like me now?
I like me. I guess like it's like part of me was looking for like something stupidly profound, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
of course it's going to be that simple.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, of course, that just like life keeps changing and you just keep doing it. Just keep going. Like, oh, yeah, right. And for whatever reason, there's like this sigh that comes along with that. Like, right. There is no like magic pill that changes everything. It's just, we just keep going. We just keep doing the work. And so I kind of wonder, like, maybe they did teach us history the way we're now realizing it. It just didn't, like, maybe I just wasn't in a place to hear any of this at like 16 years old. So maybe it was like, maybe we did get all of the information and just filtered through like, okay, cool, he was transcendentalist, whatever, great. And just like that, maybe there has been this huge shift since 200 years ago. Like, right, like maybe we have made a tremendous amount of progress in some areas that we are just never satisfied with, because it does keep changing. We do keep going, and we are keep working at it. And it's like, oh, we're doing what he said. We're looking at it and going, oh, let's still not be okay with this status quo. Let's still keep changing and shifting and morphing and making it better. And realizing like there's still some stuff that's really messed up. I don't know. That's what I just, it was one of those moments of like, oh, huh.
You know, I think sometimes, like for me, I get discontent with the process. I would like to get to my final destination and then rest a little bit. But then but I think that's this kind of like this weird understanding that we operate in. Like, okay, you do these steps and you get this.
Yeah.
But like that never happens, because that's just not the nature. It's like the universe doesn't say, oh, I have grown as much as I'm going to stop right now and rest. It just doesn't. It's always moving, always changing.
I would like a timeout.
I'm done. I'll take care of it. It doesn't. It's always, it's just always moving. But it's like, but it's always moving forward. I mean, like you say, Dan, a lot, that there's always something going on. There's always something. It's always pushing forward. It doesn't seem that way sometimes,
Yeah.
but it is, because it can't help but do that.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes we having this like discontent with the process, but just understanding that it is a process, and then integrating each day into the next, and then into the next, and there's never a time where it's done.
Yeah.
Or we just would poof and be gone. So
Right.
if I'm sitting here and I poof, then you know that my process is done. But it has not happened yet.
You
I
truly
mean, it happened
transcended.
earlier, but then you came
It
back.
did.
You transcended.
You transcended, but then you.
How funny is it
Descended.
that I actually had poofed at that time?
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Well, so that's a really interesting point, because I think that's one of the things that people who are really into and following science of mind recognize, and yet it's not always taught that clearly all the time, that the difference between science of mind, the difference between what I think is like the logical progression of thought and realization compared to other maybe new thought or not new thought teachings, that we do teach transformation rather than transcendence. And like, we're not trying to transcend the experience. We're not trying to we're not trying to avoid the experience,
Right.
or bypass it. Our belief is that creation, our existence, is through this experience,
Mm-hmm.
which I think does kind of play back into what you're talking about. Like, I would like some time for there to feel like, is there ever a time we feel like maybe we've reached it? No, but that's, well, yes, of course, there's going to be times where we feel like we've reached a place when we kind of have that moment where you can turn around and go like, damn, wow, we've come really far. And still hold that idea that there's still something to do.
But I think it's okay to get in those moments where we kind of had that, like you get to that place, you're like, look back, look how far I've come. And it's okay just to sit for a moment
Yeah.
in that. And so then sometimes you can get into this idea of always doing, always being, always like this sort of doing. And then it just, I don't know, it just kind of ruins the process. And so it is okay to take a breath and say, wow. And that ties back to that gratitude, to look back and say, oh my God, this is amazing. Let me kind of like, let this gratitude kind of like pour over me for a moment and just experience what that's like.
Yeah.
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 So, when I first got into Science of Mind, I had been in Unity before that, but it was like a decade ago. And I just remember like my life just kept, and before that it had been like, push, and then a plateau, right? And then like push, and then plateau. And I realized that like I would get to that, but nope. And I actually went to my minister and I was like, I need a second. Like, I just need to breathe. And like, when am I going to get this plateau? And she was like, oh, like you're not, like that's over, but you get used to it. And I just remember being like, what? but it's true, because, my capacity as part of that transformation is our capacity for transformation increases, right? So she's right. Like, I don't plateau the same way that I did in my early 20s anymore. Yeah. But like, I also don't need those long plateaus. I'm capable of just kind of standing on that little tiny ledge right there and doing the look back and seeing how far I've come. And also like, I'm able to hold that spaciousness of being in this present moment and still standing in that vision of where I'm headed. Like we were talking about a few minutes ago, like my capacity has expanded for being able to do both of those things simultaneously. And it's really beautiful.
I love that.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. There ought to be a way to be able to teach that to people. Like, I know there's not.
Expanding your own capacity.
Yeah. I know there's not. Like, we all have to go through that.
If we could bottle that, man.
We would have it going on.
Yeah.
But we can, in some ways, you can teach that by living that.
Yep.
So when I can do that and show up that way, then it brings this kind of mental equivalent for other people to say, oh, well, yeah, maybe that is possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we can show up like authentically that way, then it gives everyone else that we come in contact permission to do that. And it's like kind of this like group learning experience.
Yeah.
It just kind of expands from that center. I mean, the trick obviously is having to show up in that way, which is challenging, but that's part of the work too.
Yeah. And I think that's really where the beauty of this teaching is. Like, we can do both, see the change that needs to happen, or the change that we desire, that we're looking to happen, as we can see that like as evolution, not as like what's, holding it, judging it good or bad, but like what's happening right now doesn't work.
Right.
What does working look like? So we can do that, and also be in the moment and enjoy what there is to be enjoyed now. And I think that's really one of the beautiful things we're doing here in this teaching, specifically in Soul Evolution Collaborative, is that idea of showing up collectively and collaboratively. Like, we do get to show up in a way where we inspire each other and kind of like pull each other along. Like one person gets to step out this way and be themselves, and then somebody else goes, oh wow, and then they get to step out, and then somebody else gets to, and now we're all kind of doing it for each other, with each other, and it turns into this beautiful, like, I don't know, swirl of like
Awesomeness.
of awesomeness.
Awesome. Amazingness.
Swirl of badassery.
Yes,
I like
swirl of
that.
badassery.
I like that.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, it is good stuff. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm feeling pretty good and pretty complete, I
Me
think.
too.
I am too.
Thank y'all so much. This has been so much fun. I put in the private chat. I was like, I'm in heaven.
Thanks for crashing the party.
Crashing the party, like for real, for real.
Yeah, it's been pretty great. It's been pretty great. Thank you for being here with us and
Yeah.
jumping right in and showing up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So y'all, as we just said, I'm a guest, I'm jumping in, but let me tell you, I have my own ministry that I do, but let me tell you that I come every single Thursday night. I am there at 7:00 at the gathering because it is so profound to me. This is the space where I go to get spiritually fed. And so I invite you to come join us and get spiritually fed also on Thursday night. If you want to just dive deeper into this conversation, if you have something to say, if you were like, oh my God, yes, like, and you guys didn't even go over here to this part, like come on Thursday night and come talk to us and see what's up. It's just a really amazing opportunity to just dive in so deep into your own process and into this teaching. And also, Soul Evolution Collaborative is supported and made possible by people like you. And I know that I tithe here because it's where I'm spiritually fed. So I invite you to also send some of your tithes and donations. This ministry is freaking amazing. And I am so grateful that I get to be a part of it, even in just this tiny little way. So you can do that. You can go to soulevolutioncollaborative.org and click on the donate button. All donations, of course, are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. They send so much love to all of their donors and people and everybody who's touched by this. You can also visit that website for more information, for e-news, for inspiration, for all kinds of stuff. And so we'll see some of you on Thursday night at 7. I hope you'll be there. I will definitely be there. Or we'll see you next week on Truth Be Told. Thank you so much for letting me come crash.